Welcome to the Love, Sex, and Leadership podcast, where you can discover simple tantric teachings to embody your true power, awaken your soul's wisdom, and live an inspired life as a natural, intuitive, and heart-centered leader. Welcome, everyone, to Love, Sex, and Leadership. My name is Aaron Kleinerman. I am very excited today to have on the show Gerard Adams. We were both speaking at the same event in Toronto from a friend who I've been on his podcast before. A friend, who runs amazing events there. Zarak, sorry. And Gerard and I had a good conversation and good catch up, and we've been trying to make this happen for a little while. So, Gerard is a devoted father, a man of God, an investor. He's an entrepreneur. Just a really powerful influencer. When we had a good kind of man-to-man conversation at this event, I could just feel his heart more than anything. And that's something that I look for and really strive for and honor in the men that are making a difference in the planet. And someone as him, I'm grateful to have on the show, to have a conversation to see where it goes. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, Aaron, thank you so much for having me. And really received that, brother. Thank you for honoring me and sharing this platform with me. And I remember that day and being really inspired by your talk as well. And so thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, and for you guys all listening. Just excited for where this conversation will go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first question, it came through when I was just kind of reviewing some of your background and whatnot, is, I often find, for especially male bodies that are at a point of leadership in their lives and leading, humans in the realms of transformational growth, there's certain pivotal key turning points that from the life of, let's say, being more ordinary to being more extraordinary. And I'm curious for you, what maybe one or two of those key turning points where we recognize, wow, I'm here to really make a strong difference in not only your own life, but the lives of others.
Wow. Such a great question. Turning points. So many. I'm still just so many, man. Just constantly, having these different turning points in my life. I think the first one that came through right away for me was, 30 years old. I really think about this concept of the three mountains. It's a curriculum that I teach, and I really think about the three mountains. It's like my 20s was like my first mountain, kind of seeking financial success and proving myself and validation and all of that. And then I kind of came to the second mountain, which was my 30s. And I think it was in that moment, because the second mountain was when I really started to open myself up as to who am I without the money? Now that I've climbed this mountain and sold my company for $50 million, my second 8-figure business, all of a sudden I'm being asked to speak on stages with the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world. I'm speaking at different incubators in Silicon Valley. I'm winning awards, and so all of a sudden it was like these things that I was after finally came to fruition, and then all of a sudden I didn't feel happier. I had this whole I feel it. I just tapped into it. I'm just I feel it. It was like this huge freaking hole in me, man, that just felt empty. And I just remember being on a balcony, and I went it was a difficult exit to I'm getting threatening letters from venture capitalists. We're in a boardroom, big sale. I'm trying to block the vote. It was a crazy process of letting go my baby, because as an entrepreneur too, when you finally have something that works, because we strive to succeed and to build this company and business, and you go through so many failures. I've gone through so many failures, and people don't see those. They see the ones that work, but it's like this one, I became so attached to it. My identity became elitedaily.com, and this company. And so I remember when it exited, and now this baby's no longer my baby, and this company, the Daily Mail, I don't know if you're familiar with them, they acquired it. It was no longer my baby anymore. And I just had this hole, man. And I remember being on this balcony my accountant's like, gee, you're going to get millions of dollars wired to your account, move to Florida, save on state income tax. And this older version of me that was like exotic cars and penthouse, I was all excited. I get this penthouse and I just felt empty, man. And I prayed in that moment. And I just had this really divine moment with God where I'm like, God, man, like why did this happen? Why me? I didn't really
Mhm.
deserve this. Like a young kid from New Jersey it kind of had odds stacked against him, didn't have some big degree, didn't grow up with rich parents. Like I was like, why me? And it was in that moment, that was like a big moment for me, one of them, where I really felt God, man, and just like, well, it's because it's your turn to now be a mentor. I've guided you with different mentors in your life to get to this point, and now it's time for you to be that inspiration for others that may feel like you, or like that they can't do it or doubt themselves. And that was just like this moment for me, and it was that plus after speaking at these big incubators in Silicon Valley and these bigger stages, I kind of started to see the resources that were given to entrepreneurs in some of these other big cities. And growing up as a small town kid, I'm like, wait a second, they actually have these things called incubators. They're actually teaching and supporting entrepreneurs. And so that's kind of when I felt the inspiration to, what if I went back to my roots in New Jersey in the hood and created an incubator and started
Mm.
teaching entrepreneurship, emotional intelligence, and financial literacy to youth, to young people that look like me, that may not have those resources yet, or know that is a pathway. And so that was like
Mhm.
a one big, I would say, really big turning point for me in my life.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. It sounds like a deep meeting of God. One of the definitions of God I had received from a mentor years ago was a grand organized design of this kind of wild, crazy life that we're living God. And I'm curious for you because I feel often when the word God gets woven into arenas with finances and more, CEO types, sometimes people don't even really want to go to God because they're often associating it to more religion. So I'd love to
Mm.
hear more about what your own personal, relationship with spirit, with God, and how that turning point for you kind of maybe opened you up more to the realms of God and what that kind of energetic vibration is in your world.
Yeah, thanks, bro, for that. Um, yeah, that opportunity to share that. Um, hmm, Gosh, I mean, just coming back from this, I'd mentioned to you prior to the show, I just came back from Guatemala serving with the group of men, a leadership retreat, and I had this moment coming up this mountain, bro. This is the third mountain now, in what I was leading at this point. And as we were climbing this mountain physically, I remember there was an invitation for us to bring this rock up to the top, to the summit, and let this rock represent a piece of something that we need to let go of. That's a piece of us. That's no longer in alignment. And I remember just feeling deeply that like I've been leading a lot, even as a purpose-driven leader, entrepreneur, all these things. Like I still felt like I was leading from a place of ego, even though I'm always surrendering to God. I just still felt that my own will was getting in the way. I kept hitting a ceiling,
Mm,
my limitations. I
mhm,
kept revenue wise, impact wise, like all these things. I'm like hitting these like ceilings. Like I just physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. So I'm just like, you know what? Every step is going to be a declaration. I'm giving up my will for God's will. And when I got to the top of this mountain, bro, and I threw this rock as a freaking declaration of letting go of my will for God's will, I felt I got smashed in the face, bro. Like smash. You got to see the video, dude. We get smashed in that moment with the like craziest wind and rain. Like it literally was like as if like God was like, all right, now I can show you my power. You know what I mean? And I'm like, who am I to think I'm like I got all this strength and all this stuff, and and it's like, yeah, it was such a beautiful reminder for me of just being able to not think I need to do this alone, and that like God's
mhm,
got this, man, and I can really surrender into God's strength.
mhm,
And
mhm,
that was really powerful. And after that, going back to that moment I told you about the depression, I mean, in that moment, the moment turning point I had with God was actually my first psychedelic experience. I had just done
Mm.
an event for 300 entrepreneurs. One of my dear friends, and he was a speaker, Daniel DiPiazza, afterwards was like, "Yo, G, you just gave a speech about doing the hard, uncomfortable, uncertain things. I got something for you. I'm going to see my shaman." I'm like, what the F's a shaman, bro?" He's like, yeah, picture that. And so, I end up going with him to this apartment in Brooklyn with, like, I swear it was like Burning Man in an apartment. The door opens up. This monk looking dude opens the door, bald guy, straight up looks like a freaking modern Dalai Lama. There's twinkly lights in the space. I'm like, what am I getting myself into? We go in this apartment and he starts to talking about this molecule DMT and this frog, this toad, and 5-MeO DMT, and this whole experience. And like, next thing you know, man, I'm inhaling this 5-MeO DMT, bro. And just, I thought this was the worst decision of my life. I thought, my brain's gonna get stolen. I'm getting addicted to some kind of drug. I just went into like the deepest fear state. I literally tried to haymaker the guy, the shaman. Um, he gets his hand on my heart. He's like, "You're safe. You're loved." And in that moment, I was like, "All right, I have no choice but to go through this by just surrendering." And that, believe it or not, that moment for me was a turning point for me because I really died. And I think it's
Mm.
really about this constant process of death and rebirth for me, where I meet God.
Mhm.
And
Mhm. Mhm.
I now I look to do that sober. I don't look to do that with psychedelics.
Mhm.
And but that moment for me, it really caused me to have a serious death of my ego in that moment. And I felt love, man, self love,
Mm.
love. And so I feel like God for me represents as simple as that, love. Can I get
Mm.
out of the fear state, and can I step into my true faith and lead from that place of love?
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. It reminds me that the first time I had 5-MeO toad, I had a little bit more awareness around it, and the first thing that came through me from like the bottom of my belly was just love. Like I had just opened this channel. It opened up this preacher that wanted to speak and flow and just let like the spirit of
Mm,
God move through me. And for about 30 minutes, I just channeled God. I just channeled the voice of God and like let myself pour through. At the end of it, the guy turned to me. He's like, "I've been serving this medicine for, 20, 30 years. I've never heard someone articulate so clearly on this medicine." It was a big turning point for me of like
mm.
actually opening up and knowing and remembering and trusting in the potency and the power of my voice to make transformation and impact in the world. So yeah, it's a potent medicine.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially to start off, man. It's like, okay, we're going there. That's cool, man, to hear that you had that experience too.
Yeah. The key pieces I was hearing, and I feel like I want to make a couple threads here is really there's
Mm,
a deeper capacity of surrender. And I know you do some work with men and brotherhood and helping male bodies be more have greater impact and make more money and be good fathers, etc. The thing I was hearing in a lot of what you're sharing, and I like it because it's often the things I'm bringing in my men's retreats and things, is like the capacity to surrender, the capacity to
mm,
really let go of what we no longer have control of. And I guess a question or kind of an inquiry around like when you're working with and supporting men in this way to that place of surrender, like what do you see are some of the biggest challenges that men face with actually doing is what we're talking about, like surrendering the ego, letting go of control, and truly
right.
trusting like the capacity of God, like the capacity that we're just a small little, blimp on a spinning rock in the middle of the cosmos or in a very short amount of time. So how do we truly surrender as a man? Well, I'd love to hear some
Mm.
thoughts.
Wow, I love this question. I love this question so much. And oh man, the great surrender. Like, geez, it isn't easy as men. I think from my experience, I can get so caught up in my head, bro. Like just being a leader who's managing a portfolio of businesses, who's, got my personal brand, who's got a 3-year-old little girl, and being a father and managing family and friends and community, and like with all of those things that are responsibilities that I have that I'm really grateful for, a lot I spend a lot of time in my mind, man. And a lot of guys I feel can relate to that. We're thinking, we're contemplating, we're strategizing, we're um, we're really spending time up here. And so I think the biggest thing, one, is creating space and giving men permission to feel, and to just allowing them to drop from that head down into that heart space, down into that body. And it simply is just creating that space to breathe into that, and really feel into what is really alive for me. And then it's like that
Mm.
constant practice of like having that before we do our podcast, having that before you make investment decisions, having that before you have a conversation with your beloved or business partner. And so for me, just like creating a space to support them to move from that head down, because I love that we get to have critical thinking, and I love that as men that we can strategize and we can make decisions and we can give direction, and the mind is really powerful, but it's really coming into between that head and that heart and that spine that I find we really get integrated. And I would say the next thing is like actually like really getting uncomfortable. I think that's what I really
Mm.
love about these adventure leadership retreats that we're doing, and I see that you're doing as well, is I find myself being really comfortable at times in my office, and just doing work and at home, and creating a safe environment for my family. And especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're focused on growing your company and scaling your business, you kind of really want to stay in your routine, where it's safe. And that's great. And consistency is important. But I find that by getting out of the comfort zone and like actually leaving the nest and going out to hunt, going on a rite of passage, whatever that means for you, and doing something really hard and uncomfortable, but choosing that, again, I find that forces you to have to surrender. Going up this
Mm.
mountain that we just did, weather came, guides were like, we don't know if it's safe. And there was a true, like, okay, we need to surrender here because there's things out of our control.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I find that being another one. And then third, I'll just say really just brotherhood. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like
Mm.
actually creating a container where you're just not doing it alone anymore. You're not isolating, but you're actually in a container, a container that actually is holding the brotherhood that you're in integrity. Where there's accountability, because I think that when there's actually a container that holds a high level of accountability, integrity, responsibility, room for conflict, room for clearing, and making contact, and there's core principles and ways to be able to do that, it does give, I feel, myself an opportunity to like surrender that, okay, these guys got me, you know what I mean? They
Mm.
really do
Mhm.
got me, and I can actually now let go and trust that these men got me in my fucking mess, in my shit, in my
Mhm.
lies, in my cheating, in my fucking all my stuff. They're gonna hold me, and I don't have to worry about being abandoned and being judged. And even if
Mm.
they do, it's being held, and it's being brought forth,
Mhm.
and it's being spoken to. And so I find those are, I would say, the three things that really support with that practice of surrender.
The thing I hear around surrender, and and I want to connect the dots on this beautiful explanation, thank you, is where this place of surrender, power, and vulnerability begin to intersect together, where they begin to weave together. Because at this event where we met, I was holding kind of the conversation and the speech around sex, and you were speaking around power. And I appreciated in that talk your capacity to hold the point of power, but also in that communicate into the layers of the vulnerability in your being. And to me, that was one area where I was like, I had more respect for you, because I could feel where that vulnerability was woven in with the point of authority.
Mm.
And what I often notice for men, often that are leaders and entrepreneurs and in their mind and getting shit done and being the provider and taking care of things, is the moments of when vulnerability steps in. It's like, like, there's almost a fear as if bad shit's going to happen now, because that very ingrained part of us that like needs to have the armor and be strong and be centered. And one of the things I'm often speaking with groups, especially men, is where power and vulnerability are actually quite interwoven. And even in our mainstream society, vulnerability isn't something that a lot of people are praising, or the masculine aspect in as a beneficial thing. It's becoming more woven together, but it's often from a place of he's being weak. He's down on his knees. He's lost the cutting edge. He's not seeing the right things properly because he's vulnerable in that point. So I'd love to hear some of, like, maybe if there's some particular story or time that where you've been, I could hear the place of surrender, but like that deep vulnerability, that deep place of like, wow, like, does my brother actually have my back here? Like, I've thought about this. I've read it in the books. I know it's possible, but does my brother actually have my back in the situation? And can I bring myself vulnerably here and know that I'm still held and protected and safe?
Yeah. To be honest with you, bro, like, starting this men's movement and this brotherhood for me was really vulnerable, because I had just gotten through a separation. I'm a new dad. I'm not like some OG dad. I'm not some OG in men's work, but God put it on my heart. It was something I was looking for. I was feeling lonely, isolated. I was looking for other men that were wanting to step into a container. I had tried some other containers, but really it was like vulnerable for me to allow myself to be seen in my pain of going through a heartbreak and a separation with the love of my life, who was my fiance, after having a child and feeling now like a failure as a dad. But then who am I to freaking lead men? Who am I to say this is, and so for me, I think it was really scary. And then just stepping into like the highest level of integrity in front of these guys and owning my truth to them, I felt a lot of shame, bro. And I had never had a space to really be to share that shame and share that truth and share like where I really felt like I had failed as a man. And there's something about, for me, it was like, it was really vulnerable to go first too. I knew the importance of like how that would create safety for the rest of the group. But I wanted it to be really authentic. And so it was like really balancing, okay, I got to go first here, and this is important. And I get to be really raw and real and authentic. And that was just, man, that was hard. We have something called the King's Chair, and I just sat in that chair, man, and the guys just fully challenged me, and I got to just speak about the hardest things, the things I don't want to talk about, that I fear most speaking about. Oh man. And it's so interesting that what happens, like the bonds that were created, the safety that was created with the group, nobody left. If anything, people respected me more. And it's like, we think vulnerability is a weakness, like you talked about. It's something that a lot of men fear, and it really is a strength, because you get to see the men, my humanness, my human spirit. It made me more relatable, more real. And I do think that like vulnerability isn't meant to just be like spewed out anywhere. I feel like, vulnerability is also somewhat of a popular topic right now. And I really do believe in like authenticity, but not manufacturing some vulnerability, but like having a space that you really have trust and accountability in that space. And because I have found it to be very healing, honestly. Because I've been able to not just be vulnerable, but like come back to my power in that vulnerability, like really allow time and space to feel it all, be seen and witnessed in all of its, the tears, the rage, all of it, to be welcomed, and then to like process that, and then be held and supported to come back to my power and stop giving my power away, and therefore really transform through that vulnerability. And so, man, I would say that's been one for me, that just literally launching Guards of Honor, our men's, our men's movement right now is, man, is taking a new vulnerability to a new level for me, because there's something also about just being in front of just men. Like, oh man, it's like I ain't getting out of here with hiding. You gotta, you just, they're not getting away from hiding in this. So high
Yeah,
levels of
yeah. No,
accountability there.
I feel that every time I usually 3, 4 times a year or so, I'm running one of a retreat called the Initiation Journey for Men, and I run a lot of retreats in groups, and that particular retreat I love a lot. So I see such a vast level of transformation that happens in one week. But I have that similar feeling of like every time I come, it's like it requires me to get really empty and to get really like
Hmm.
anything that I'm sitting with my partner, with life, with finance that I haven't really mined and processed through. It's just gonna, get in the way in some way. And actually, the more that I can express that deep line with power and vulnerability, then it's that much more of a healthy transmission for men to find that inside themselves. So I can relate a lot to that place.
Yeah, I love how you
So
put it. Just like emptying. I feel that.
yeah, I wonder if you relate to that. Like for me, when I'm facilitating or when I'm speaking or when I'm teaching, like my prayer that I come to is, Spirit, let me, how can I serve? And like, how can I ultimately become more empty here? How can I like
Mm,
empty out so that I can become a channel of grace, a channel of God, a channel of
mm.
life to move through me in many ways.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So you're, also a father. Fatherhood's quite close in my world, and
Let's
we'll
go. Yes.
be sharing more about that coming up. But yeah, I'm curious for you the moment that you first knew or you saw the heartbeat of your daughter. You recognized, wow, this isn't just something we're talking about anymore. This is real. Take me to that moment. I want to. How was it?
Wow. Oh man. This has been the biggest blessing of my life. I've gone through so much. It was like the biggest goal for me. I had a mentor who basically called me forward and was like, "Gee, your next thing isn't the next 100 million or $1 billion idea. It's fatherhood." And it struck a chord. And I started every day since, like really working on myself and to become the father before I became the father. And so this, like, all that work preparing for fatherhood, leading to this moment of like, I knew the moment she got pregnant, I was so happy when she told me, even she was so scared. And the moment I heard her first heartbeat, man, just, oh man, it's just like
Hmm.
God, man. Like, then God is like, it's a whole nother God experience. You're like, what like, what? We create human beings, and this being is like a part me, a part her, and God, man, it was. And then when I found out it was a little girl, it just, man, it blew my mind. But I mean, I can speak about this for hours, dude. It's been, it's been the best part of my life, hands down.
Beautiful. Probably some of the most challenging moments as well, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's my greatest teacher. She has up leveled me in so many ways. It's incredible, because I want to be the best version of her. I want to be the embodiment of the man that one day she will meet, that will create the safety for her beyond me. It's been the
Mm,
ultimate surrender to God, because there's only so much I can do to physically protect her, spiritually protect her, but I got to surrender to God to be able to protect her when I'm not around. And then just, you could do all this conscious work, right? But when a baby's freaking hysterical and she's screaming and diapers are filled and things are crazy and you have no sleep, it's like, all right, who are you in that moment? Who are you in that ceremony?
the rubber's meeting the road.
Yeah, exactly, man. And then they're a mirror, dude. They're just a mirror. She's an absolute mirror to everything. And so she's been my greatest teacher, and it's really called me
Mm,
forth in the most beautiful
mm,
way. But just new levels of patience, compassion, empathy, joy, bliss, wonder, awe, um, maturity, like talking to her like an adult, like explaining things to her, and really treating her with reverence and respect. And it's just been so freaking amazing, bro, to continue every day. It's just, I've grown, and witnessing her and how she just turned 3, and so like her personality is starting to blossom, and the way she sees the world. And yeah, it's like a deep level of love and also just responsibility. You really feel that. Like, you can go and lead all the things in the world you want, all the people in the world, all the businesses, but your child, it's a different level of, I feel, responsibility as a father.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And how has that been with her mother, with your relations? And I know you shared a little bit about that, but I guess the question is that, especially for other listeners or men who are going through similar difficulties or challenges after bringing a child in the world, and sometimes relating has its ebbs and flows and difficulties along the way. What's been kind of your guiding medicine for that, to keep a level of both like healthy boundaries as well as inner integrity?
bro, you just nailed it. As you were asking that question, I was like, because that's also been one of my greatest challenges and areas of growth, has been, bringing this little girl into the world, and then my ex-fiance, saying she doesn't want to move forward. She wants to get separated. It was heartbreaking, bro, like
Mm,
grief. And then it was like, okay, like, who am I in this relationship? And so I really feel it. I think the one thing I would say is, we're still family. You're still, like, she's always going to be the mother. And so I'll speak from my experience. I was like, okay, how can I still show up fully loving her as the mother, creating a container with her where we have a shared vision. We both were able to align, because we were bickering. We were like, we broke after we broke up. It was a little hostile. It was a little difficult. And so it was like grounding in. Okay, we're no longer romantically a couple,
mhm,
and we're both aligned. Where's the alignment? The alignment is, we both have a shared vision and shared goal to be the very best co-parents that we possibly can for our little girl. We want to give her the best experience possible with mommy and daddy, even though it's a redefining our definition of family. And so once we align to that shared vision, it was a lot easier to then come up with trust agreements into, what does that look like?
mm,
What are the agreements that we have on when she's with you, when she's with me, how we want to raise her. And I created a structure where we have a weekly meeting where we talk about these things. Getting help and support is huge. I got a third party co-parenting expert, just like I would hire a coach for business or hire a coach for personal growth. I hired a coach for co-parenting, and they came
mm,
in and they helped to guide us. And then after getting support, yeah, the healthy boundaries piece was big.
mm,
I had to set those, and I had to really talk to her about, like, if it's about Skylight, you can, hit me up all the time, but you don't have access to me the way that you once did when we were a couple. So,
mhm,
what does that look like? If certain things you can reach out to me, but otherwise you bring it to our call that we have once a week.
mhm,
And because I noticed that, and then when I finally was, healed to a place of opening myself up romantically, I was important to me to not just have just random messages that of her frustration at any point in time, where it would affect
mhm,
it was affecting other that dating experience. And so I just had to learn about those kind of boundaries. And it's, I'm still learning from the journey, but I feel like we finally have hit a stride where we have structure, where we meet consistently. We have shared values and shared vision for raising her, got support and help. And I just had to continue to lean on my brothers, man, and continue to lean on this work, because there's still things that that would previously really upset me. And being honest, there was something today. I had to put the boundary of not no longer looking at her social media, because of
mm,
this. She has a story of the way things happened, and I felt that it wasn't the full story. Let's just put it that way. And so I decided,
mhm,
what, for myself, I'm going to protect my peace. I'm just going to restrict. I don't need to go and look at her social media. I can have this healthy relationship for our child. And then, someone today had reached out to me and been like, "Hey man, I saw something on her story. Are you okay?" And it just, it rocked me a little bit, man, and the practice, this is why the work is so important. I got to just be in my practice of like creating some space for me to feel what it feels like sometimes where I feel disrespected or feel
Mhm.
hurt, and just
Mhm.
allowing space for me to feel into that, bro, and then not react and just be like, all right, presencing that, breathing through that, and then working on coming back to the fact that, I love her as the mother of my child. And that's important to me, is to have a healthy, loving relationship. And so just letting that pass, letting that go, while in the space that we've created to speak. If I feel I need to speak about something, I speak it. Hey, I
Mhm.
feel
Mhm.
that, this is something that I really want to presence, and speaking directly to it, and just letting her know. It could be something as simple as, like, hey, you've been referring to me as G. I really would like it if you call me by my name, Gerard. Um,
Mm.
but
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
like speaking directly to her and just telling her what it is that I really want, and not holding back from that, but looking at the come from. I'm always like checking in, like, where's my come from here?
Mhm.
Is this
Mhm.
important? Why is this important to me, before communicating it to her? Whereas in the past, I would just react and then bang, like hit her with something.
Mhm.
So it's been
Mhm.
really like slowing down, so that way when I do bring it to her, I'm like really checking in, where's the come from and what's the impact of this? Is this,
Mm.
is this something that needs to be addressed? If so, great, speak to it, be direct. Or is this something that I get to just give compassion to myself and recognize that part of me that's still maybe hurt, and then
Mhm.
moving that myself.
Yeah, I think the romantic partners and the beautiful beings that come into our lives, I know for me, has been some of my greatest lessons and teachers. If I look back to each one, and even my current partner, I feel like there's always a beautiful, honest place of reflection and learning there. And I think the segue I want to make to that is in these roles of leadership that we have in the world, leading people, influencing, supporting them, helping them move through their traumas and their difficulties. There's often a field of projection. Of course, there's a field of projection that gets created when with the mother of your child. But even more, especially when you're in front of groups, and that field of projection. And I'd love to hear from you, like, where do you as a leader, like, how do you have some type of feedback process or reflection process? Because I know, like, I always want to hear the things people are sharing, because I know it might not all be true, but there's some peppercorns of truth there. There's some things that I know that are probably gonna hit a chord inside of me that's gonna give me a chance to grow. But with that, there's often a lot of projection and bullshit and
Yeah.
things that are being thrown out that it's just like, that's not accurate. So I'm curious how you've
Yeah.
navigated this to the best of your ability.
Oh man, dude, such a great question. One thing I didn't realize was how connected our romantic relationships are to the mother and the father wound. Like,
Mm.
so much of her relationship with me was based on the father wound, and so much of my relationship with my ex was based on the mother wound, and we attracted each other in that place. And so to answer your question, for me, there was when I would receive, I felt a lot of times projection through what I would my interpretation of her relationship with her father. I actually said it's not my job to do her work or to bring it to her awareness. And so for me, it was holding a field of compassion and recognizing what about what she is saying is mine and what is not mine. And always
Mm.
being
Mhm.
curious in that compassion for her, compassionate for her, but also curious within myself to actually say, okay, what about this is mine? And really let go of the shit that's just not mine. And there's been many
Mhm.
times I felt projection that I'm like, man, that fucking hurt. Like, that is not who I am, right? Or whatever it was. And then but I would still slow down, man, and get curious, and then still be like, you know what? There is still an opportunity for me, though. I can see how by me behaving in that way could have hurt her and could have be out of integrity. And I could have. So I'm always just really looking at it, staying open to and being curious of what that growth is, but also like recognizing a lot what is not mine, and letting that go. And what's really cool is about this is, like, over time, our relationship has become more and more healed. And over
Mm,
time, there's been more responsibility between us where she's owned up to things with me around projection, like specifically being like, hey, I've projected a lot and I've done some healing work and I recognize that and I want to take responsibility and apologize. I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea how much that meant to me. And then there was moments where I've come to her and been like, hey, like I recognize where I really hurt you and I've done certain things and I've cleared with her and taken radical accountability and responsibility and apologize. And so it's like this, we're still teachers in our lives. And still we're still growing and learning together. And that's why I love her to death. And I'm so grateful for her. We're family and I want her to have the very best life. I want her to, and I want my daughter to just know how lucky she is to have such an amazing, amazing mother.
beautiful. Yeah, I can feel the love and the compassion and the care in that. Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, switching gears a little bit, and I'd love to kind of pick your brain a little bit, but also hear some of your reflections around the area of both investing in business. As someone from a
Mm.
young age, as you shared, has made a lot of money, made a lot of millions and impact. I think first, a question for you is like, what drives you now financially? Like, if there's been a certain level of success, like, what is the driving thing in your doing, in your creating, in your building, in the companies and things? Like, what is the thing that's the to me, like, the ultimate why? It's the thing I look at with clients
Oh
and with
man.
people. It's like, what's like the why that's getting you up and moving you ahead?
Hmm. Hmm. If I'm being like real in this moment, just tapping in, what feels true to me, man, is there's still just this real big, there's just this part of me, man, that just wants to, I do want to get to the end of my rope, end of my days, man, and just feel like I meet God. And I've felt this once before where like this light shined on me. I was in a cold plunge. I had just completed one of our leadership retreats and I felt God's presence and I felt the voice of God being like, good job, my, you know, my loyal and faithful servant.
Mm,
And I felt when I came out of the DMT experience I talked to you about, you shared with me like how you were channeling. And one of the moments for me when I felt this huge light hit me and I felt this self love, but I also felt the presence of God. Like God's real. Like in that moment, I was like, oh my God, it's no longer this idea of God. God is real. And I
mhm,
remember that I
mhm,
made a bargain with God. And I said to God, I said, God, if you give me life and you let me come out of this, I am devoted and I promise you to fully give myself to being a soldier of yours, to creating as much impact as possible, to being a servant leader, and to helping to just inspire and elevate those that I come into contact with. And I remember making that deal with him. And I remember when I had the breath, I remember coming back and breathing like I felt like two things. I felt like a warrior and I felt like LeBron James who's like getting ready for game 7 in the finals. Like put me in, coach. I'm ready to play this game and at a championship level. And so I think what really drives me is definitely that is the leading why. There's definitely other little points of like I want to live a high quality life. I love having nice things. I like having options. I want to travel the world with my daughter and hopefully future children. I want to be able to have a high quality life in that way, um, and also build schools and incubators, like continue that journey of like providing resources to those in need in the world, um, and so that as well, and then play to my fullest potential.
mm, mhm. And so what I hear in that is a lot of the service driven why that's really generating wealth and income as a way of giving back, as a way of creating a level of safety and comfort for yourself, I think, which is beautiful, but also really, supporting others and inspiring others to know that inside themselves. I guess a question or your thoughts on it maybe is, when you see individuals or male bodies, it can be female bodies as well, but that are really, you know, making wealth from the place of the ego, making wealth from the place of trying to validate themselves by the zeros in their bank account. And, I feel like I've worked with enough coaches and CEOs and things, and have helped a lot of, very wealthy individuals who have had a vast amount of wealth but still have an emptiness inside. Like, what would
Mhm.
you say to some of those individuals that are generating wealth to validate their ego versus generating wealth for the service of their soul?
Wow. Mm, so good. And that was definitely me. You don't know what you don't know. Ah,
Hmm.
what would I say? Hmm. I would just say to them, like, there's a bigger game. You're
Hmm.
playing a finite game,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
there's a bigger game, and get excited about that.
Hmm.
And to not, don't judge that part of yourself, because I did. And actually,
Hmm.
that part of yourself is really beautiful and is really
Hmm.
powerful, and it can be very, very useful. One thing that I wish I had someone kind of tell me, because when I did realize, oh, there is a bigger game, there's an infinite game, and I was playing a finite game, and it can lead to just that emptiness that I talked about that I felt. You know, I swung so far into the spirituality side that I like was all about purpose and all about giving back. And then I was like somewhat broke. Like I was like not caring about money at all. I was like, fuck money. Money, like, and I think that was unintegrated as well. And so like it's I feel like there's a real opportunity to come into that balance where like you really love that part of yourself, that hustler, and that person that like not everybody can do with that. Not everybody can go out and make money and build businesses and do these things. Like that is a really beautiful, powerful skill. And so it's like honing that skill, but then it's just slightly redirecting the come from and where you're going with that skill. And
Hmm.
so, if you can do that, and there's plenty of ways to do that, but most importantly, like putting yourself in these uncomfortable places, like when Aaron's leadership retreats or different containers that actually can support you. I have a container as well that like all of a sudden gets you around other men that are actually still hustling, still scaling businesses, still creating wealth, but actually doing it now from this new place of not trying to prove themselves. And that's a way more infinite, fun, playful, exciting, inspirational, and honestly sustainable way of doing it.
Hmm. 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 And you can feel the difference in the kind of vibrational alignment from somebody that's in that frequency compared to the other one, regardless of, how much is in the account, if you will. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God, man. Yes, bro. Because you're just like, I've been like recently coming back into this, man. Like one of my big lessons on this mountain, this third mountain for me, man, was like really stepping into a new level of abundance. I was actually in a little bit of a scarcity moment in my life where there was still some like fear. Like I mentioned to you, right? Like on the mountain, I was like, I'm surrendering my will. Like again, like I noticed how even in the impact driven leaders create leaders company, like so impact driven, but I still was like trying to control and trying to lead. And I felt it through the scarcity. And man, I'll tell you, man, it's just been so awesome when you like finally let that go, because now you can really step into that level of abundance. And from
Mm.
there, it's like it feels like way more flow. Like now I'm like flow, and it's no longer just some metric that's feeding the ego.
Yeah, I I love that. The question in that is more around, 'cause I know for myself, like one of, if any partner I've ever been with, anyone would say like there's a persistent part of my will. And when I set my mind upon
Mm,
something, when I set my being, like that persistence and that will is driving. So where in in the letting go and surrendering your will to God and being on the mountain and being there, and I've had these moments as well. Where do you find that
Mm,
to find this flow now in business? There's still moments when
mm.
it requires, Gerard to have the will that's like, nope, like my sword is out. I need to penetrate through here to keep this flow. So where does the will of penetration and
Yeah.
that masculine force meet the flow and the deep surrender? Where can that happen to still keep the income coming in and
Oh,
keep the things
dude,
flowing?
such a powerful question. I have a prime example of just yesterday, honestly.
Hmm.
It comes back to one, trust. Okay. Now I'm surrendering to God. I trust in what I'm building. I trust that God has given it to me for a reason. I trust that I'm more than capable to building it. And I trust that with God's guidance and support and strength, that it's going to be way bigger than anything I can do on my own. Now, through that
Hmm.
trust, I start holding the standard, the frequency of what it is that I'm building. And so for me, a prime example of that is I'm doing a private dinner at my house in like a couple weeks, just like a
Hmm.
really cool private dinner, chef, fireside, bonfire chat. And a guy got on the call with me yesterday, and it's $500 for the dinner, 1,000 to come earlier in mastermind. And he's like on the call, he's like, hey man, like if it's 300, like I can do it right now, but I can't, otherwise I want to talk it over with my partner. If it's 500 or more, we made an agreement. Then he's like, hey, listen, if you do 400, I can still make that decision and do it right now. And it was like in that moment for me as the leader, I just simply said no. Like I'm holding
Hmm.
that line, and it was just in a line of integrity. I'm holding that. And that's for me what it looks like in holding that frequency of abundance. I trust fully that if he's meant to be there, he's meant to be there. I'm honoring the integrity of all the other men that are saying yes. I trust fully in that, what the decision we made for that price point, and that how many of us though have wavered and in the scarcity, like, okay, we'll give that the person a discount or whatever. Guess what? He did and talked to his wife. He emailed me in less than 24 hours and said, I'm in. Send me the link for the $500. And it felt
Hmm.
so good. And then someone on my team was like, gee, man, thank you, because that gave me inspiration to understand how to hold the line of what it is that we're doing. And this doesn't necessarily mean that we can't give certain offerings and even discounts in the future, but for me that's what it looked like in practice, that I was unattached whether he said yes or no, but in being unattached and fully holding that frequency and that standard, and then surrendering into that, knowing that trust got this and who's meant to be there will be there, but like holding that with him too, like making contact and holding that, it worked out, man. And I does that answer your question? Is that a
It,
good
it it
example?
it does. I just had a flash of, I can't remember the name of the movie, but I think it's Mel Gibson, and he's got all the guys on the line. He's like, hold,
Oh,
and
right, right.
it's
Yeah.
hold, hold.
I think it's a Braveheart. Yeah.
Yeah, Braveheart. Yeah, exactly. No, and I love that. Like I feel, this project I was telling you about, I'm landing this community retreat center in Portugal. Like I initially found this land, and all I've been feeling with it is just like the deep trust, the deep trust that the
Mm,
beings, the individuals, the money, the investments, all of it. And the more that I keep trust and the more that I'm just holding like the standard of what I envision of this coming through, and listening as well to the people that are coming there. Like you were listening to him, you were listening to what was there, but you're like, well, I'm listening to you and I'm holding a certain caliber here. And I'm feeling a similar, I mean, it's a different thing, but a different quality that
right.
requires like a listening to the chords that are underneath, that are ultimately connecting us to this land
Mm,
here, and in this situation connecting the frequency of the people that are coming into this event. Beautiful example. Thank you, brother. Yeah.
yeah, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just got goosebumps, and really honoring you for holding that too. And it's really exciting when we do that. We really surprise ourselves when we really hold it and we trust. I mean, it's like anyone who's in this place, like right now, like if this inspired you, I really invite you to just practice that for the next couple days. Like see
Mm.
where your ego comes into contact and wants to settle or give in, and that's the masculinity like opportunity for you to like, can you hold your spine? Can you root your spine a little bit more, open your heart a little bit more, and allow that trust, and just see and practice as an experiment what happens in that, whether it's a
Mm.
conversation or a business decision or or even some other way. I was going to say parenting, and just kind of see. Because you know what, parenting. Honestly, parenting is a good one. I did it with my daughter today. Hold, but she's crying. Give me the toy. Give me hold, and I'm holding with compassion. But there was a level of discipline, and then all of a sudden, it was like she came to, and she got it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
parenting's another man. That one, I'm telling you, Aaron, I can't wait, bro. I'm here for you, bro. I can't wait to be celebrating you in fatherhood.
We'll do a part two in a year or two about with parenting the subject.
I love that.
Amazing. So I'd love to yeah, just hear any upcoming, you know, events, offers, things that you're doing, and you mentioned a lot of different leadership pieces. If someone wants to get a hold of you to find out more about,
uh,
you know, how you can help them in their journey, what's the best way to reach you, as well as what's exciting that you're creating and doing right now?
Dude, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share this. I know you're super devoted to the similar work, and I can't wait to experience some of your more of your magic. And coming back from this last retreat, it's been the most transformational work of my life. I'm really proud of what we've built with my team, and I have a remarkable team of men that are men that have been doing this work for a really, really long time. I'm devoted to this movement of helping men to reclaim their masculinity, to learn how to lead more powerfully. And we have a program called Guards of Honor that really is aligned to my lineage. My father and my grandfathers were guards of honor in my lineage. And it's just this beautiful opportunity to step into guardianship and leadership. I mean, it's a 6-month program where we go up these 3 mountains. The first mountain is the sun. The second mountain is the man. The third mountain is the father. And it's really
Mm.
about awareness, integration, and embodiment of that father that you would want to follow and that you are as a leader. Whether or not you're
Mhm.
biologically a dad or becoming a dad or just being a father to other men or a father within your business, it's a really powerful journey with adventure retreats aligned to it, virtual and online, 6 months. And we just completed, I'm so proud of it. And we're getting ready to now start to open up for anyone who's interested for the next cohort. Over these next couple of months, I'll be taking calls personally and really guarding this beautiful container. And if anyone is interested to learn more, please follow me on Instagram, Gerard Adams, GerardAdams. You can simply send me a DM with the word adventure, and I can direct you into having a conversation. And if this podcast also impacted you at all, I'd love to connect with you on the gram. So hit me up, Gerard Adams.
Amazing, amazing. I love that you're doing the adventure journeys. Yeah, the brother that was on this podcast as well, Jamin, he and I climbed up Kilimanjaro. That was two summers ago, and it's actually we were meant to do it this year. It'll probably happen next year, but bringing a group of men up one of the highest mountains in the world. So I love the adventure. When adventure and transformational work comes together, it's like my heart just blossoms
Mm,
open. So celebrating you for supporting men in that way and holding the holding the guard, holding the guardian place of really bringing men into that place. And I feel that in your being. I
mm,
feel that in who you are and how you show up in this world. And yeah, thank you for hearing the call, for being the sole steward of divine powerful leadership on
mm,
this planet. And it's very grateful to have you in my life and to have you here on the show, brother.
mm. Oh man, thank you so much for seeing me, brother, and for being aligned. And yeah, I really appreciate you, bro. And I'm so looking forward to us continuing to build this friendship and doing some fun stuff together. Thank you for sharing your platform with me, and yeah, also just thank you for the work you're doing in the world. I know that you're creating massive, massive impact, and you're a very, very powerful and loving leader and a window for so many others to see what's possible. So yeah, just thank you for what you're doing in the world, and I'm excited for us to build even more an allyship, how we continue to be allies in each other's lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you're watching this for the first time, please subscribe and check out more episodes with amazing other leaders like Gerard. Love, sex, and leadership. And see you next time.